Today, the ds-incubator is going to demonstrate with examples some of, or hopefully all, of the practices that we are drafting in terms of working with Git. As you know, we are developing this documentation about the practices that we would like to display at 2 degrees, and we have just discussed the draft of practices about Git. Our colleagues are gonna be asked to review them. So far, nothing that I'm gonna be showing today is kind of written in stone. And by showing this, you're not kind of agreeing that this is the way to go. But I thought of before actually you can review the draft critically. I thought that it is important to do something that Monica had been asking for, which is this idea of examples, because some of the practices are very abstract. And without an example, you may feel that you are agreeing on something that you don't really know what we mean. So this is one way of kind of addressing that issue, giving one tiny specific example for each of these practices. So let me first review them very quickly. Basically, all of them first refer to shared commits, a commit history that we share with someone else and do not apply locally, at least not as strictly. You may adopt your own practices, but once you share, these things apply. And today I am going to be showing some things that I do when I work locally, but not when I share, not once I have shared some specific commit. For example, the idea of rewriting history, it only applies before you share the commit. Once you share it, you're kind of stuck with what you have, and you have other strategies that you can still, you can still change things, but not change the history of commits. 7 practices more or less summarize the discussion that we are having so far. This is all in a draft mode. Number 1, the changes that you share should be closely related to each other. So in one commit, what we want is, again, this is a draft. We would like to see is that all the changes in that one commit are related to each other. Then the idea of committing often is associated with the idea of the size of each commit. Each commit should be as small as it can be, and a collection of commits should tell the story of a feature. Each commit in itself should be complete, and each commit, actually this, I'm going ahead of myself, this one, the third one. Each commit in itself should do what it promises, what its message promises, but then every collection of commits towards building a feature should also do what it promises. So basically this idea of that your work should be complete is at 2 levels, at the level of the commit and at the level of the collection of commits that compose or that create a feature. We can think of features as branches, for example, of pull requests. For the idea that we aim to try to test somehow, even if it's interactively, that's the code that we added to the code base, or that we propose to add to the code base. That's what we think it does. 5, that the commit messages should be structured in a particular way to make it easy to read. And the idea is basically that it's like an email where it has a subject and a body. The body is optional. In commits, you have to write a message, so the subject is compulsory. And it's much more readable if the subject has 50 characters or less, because that's how much characters GitHub is able to show on a line on the commits history. And the body is a bit more flexible, but the recommendation that you read around is that you should try to wrap it at around 70 characters. Otherwise, people find that the text kind of overflows the screen. 6, that ideally you're working in a team and the team should agree on a particular workflow. This already brings the idea of branches. In Git, branches are a really powerful feature of Git, and all of the workflows that we have been considering use branches very heavily. And finally, that there are some tools that make our work more productive and less error prone. So today, for example, you see me here working with a very customized terminal. It has things like color, it has things like the name of the branch that I'm standing on. It's called main, it is the default branch in this repository. So all of those things, you'll see me working with aliases. For example, I type this, GLOL, and I show you a very nice, at least nice to me, very informative to me, the log of this repository. Let me do it a little smaller. That adds some things that are not the default, it adds the time, it adds the name. So just by showing you this, I'm basically addressing practice number 7, for example. So this is one example of what I mean, what we mean. Jakob just having worked in this project, and everyone has already contributed some inputs. So we all are. What we mean when we say, hey, use tools that make your work less error prone and more productive. In terms of workflow, well, I'm working on a main branch. This is the default branch. I'm going to be working on a new branch because that's the workflow that I choose to demonstrate today. So I'm going to start by there. Git checkout branch, a new branch. I'm going to call it a new package. In this example today, I'm going to be creating an empty package, the infrastructure of a package that has nothing, just the infrastructure of it. It's empty. So if I show you this repository, sorry, I hear some typing. So if you are in the meeting and not muted, it would be great if you can, so that the recording is kind of cleaner. I already have some construction work going on here, so sorry if you hear that. That's nice. So as you can see, this, and let me clear this with Control L. If I do ls, you see that the contents of this repository is nothing. It's just this nodes file, and the nodes files, if I show you the contents, it's just the nodes I have just read. But I would like this repository to become an R package, so I'm just going to execute R with R. So I'm now running R here. Let me clear the console, and I'm going to use this, but because I added already to the R profile file, I don't need to attach it to this session. So I'm just going to call the function create package from the use this package, and I'm going to use a little trick that all it does is basically does that the current working directory is going to become another package. So it's this called practices demo. So with this, if I show you now an ls of this repo, now you see that I have a description file, an namespace file, the same file nodes that I had before, and the R folder, which is actually empty. But if I query the git status, you see that I have 2 files, and because we want, remember, if I remember the practices nodes, we want to create small commits, we want to commit often, we want the changes to be related to each other. So it is now a very good time to do a little, to add everything to the staging area. And there they are, the 2 files that were added by this command. And to create a little message that is something like create package. So this is a minimum package. It has only those 2 files, but the feature that we want to create, or I want to create in this particular example, is the idea of giving the infrastructure of a minimum package. And I define as a minimum package something that has a few more things. For example, it has to be explicit about the license that this package has. So let's use R again to add a new license. So let's use the MIT license. Oops, sorry, license. So use this, added that for me. And again, in part of these practices, I'm also demonstrating that as a tool, use this makes me more productive. See how much stuff I did already with just one command. Let me show you the status. So it modified description, added something to RBLignore, added a file called license, added a file called license.md. So let me show you at least the diff of description. Basically, the default description file came with like a placeholder, kind of. It says file license, but there was no file license when I first ran the command create package. But now with the function use license, this line has been edited and it points specifically to a file that now does exist in this repo. So let me add a message. Let's do use MIT license. So if you see, oh, actually I forgot, and this is a good example actually to show how to amend commits. I created a commit that is called, which message use MIT license, but I forgot to add, what do I have here? True. There you go. I forgot to add, oh, look at that. trash /033. I added there something odd. There you go. Sorry, that was unintended. So I forgot to add these files that were new to Git. So I'm going to add them now. You see them now in my staging area, and I'm going to amend. I mean, instead of adding a new commit right now, I just, what would happen? Why I'm doing this? Because the practices say, let's do that. Let's cat notes. Cat notes. So the practices say that each commit should be complete, right? So the commit that I wrote before is not complete because it says that it promises that it adds MIT license, but it doesn't because those files are still on my staging area. So let's just amend the previous commit so it does what it promises. So git commit amend use MIT license. So now I'm not gonna change the message because it is appropriate. But I did, my staging area is now clean, and if you see the log is, looks the same. But if I show you the last commit, which files I modified, you see that now that commit is complete. It has all the files that relate to adding an MIT license. It has the license itself. It has, the modification to the description file, and has added that file also to the r-build-ignore because it is not a standard file in an R package, so I need to add it to the build-ignore. If you're not used to to building packages, a lot of these may be unfamiliar, but that's fine. Basically, just take away not what relates to the packages, but what relates to the implementation of the practices that we are talking about. So let's do a little less. We have a description file, we have a license file, we have this notes file that we need to kind of get rid of, and I will show you why soon. But before, I want to add something that I also consider crucial in an R package, and that is the idea of an R markdown of a README file, so we can tell the world what that package is about. So let's run R, and let's run the function use README. RMD. There's two flavors, MD and RMD. I'm gonna add the file README RMD, and this is it. And it gives me the chance to edit it. And I could, if I wanted, start editing it here and say, for example, what's the goal of this package. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm gonna just close this file because I think that adding the README, the skeleton of it is one thing, and then editing it so it kind of reflects what the package does is kind of another thing. At least that's how I perceive it, at least now. So the status shows that the r-build-ignore has been edited because this new file README has been added by use this, and I need to add also README RMD to the staging area. So now I have the two files that are associated with this one commit of adding README, but I'm going to make a mistake intentionally now. I'm going to try commit this and see what happens. Add README. So when I do this, I get this error, or not this error, like this message that says that README is here, but someone wrote a Git hook that forces me to render the README file to create a README MD file, because GitHub does not show very nicely the RMD. What it shows nicely is the MD. So I need to knit the RMD, the README, so that it shows kind of beautifully its contents as an MD file in GitHub. So what I need to do is to just knit that file. But I'm gonna force this commit now by adding what it says here, no verify, this hint here, right? So I'm going to execute it so I can actually do the commit there, but it is an incomplete commit, right? So again, going back to the notes, let's see. Remember that we want each commit to be complete, and it is not complete until I render my RMD file to create an MD file. So let's do that just now, and then I'll show you how I can fix that so that these two commits become just one. So let's execute R, and now let's use knitr to knit the file README RMD. This will create the MD, and I can kind of leave R now and I can show you the status. So now you see that there is a README file and there is also a man folder. I add this to the staging area and I will do the same. I'm gonna say something like render to MD. And I have to say no verify again to be able to do this commit without the RMD. So basically RMD and MD should both be in the same commit, and I haven't done that. I have forced that to show you one way in which you can fix that if you have committed incomplete work, and to make it complete you need to kind of squash different commits. So let's do just that. So let me show you the log. You see that these last two commits actually relate to the same task of creating or adding a README. So one way in which you can squash those commits is with the very handy git rebase interactive -e. So you can say up to when you want to rebase. I mean, to make it easy, I could say up to main git log. Let's see. Well, let's do just a couple. I don't know why that failed really. So git rebase interactive. Let's see, head 1, 2, 3 commits. What's happening? Because I'm mistyping. There you go. I'm mistyping rebase. That is it. And I use main. So I'm gonna rebase. I'm not, but I'm gonna ask for the option to rebase all the commits all the way back to where main was pointing. So main was pointing here to the very top, to where it says 1. But the two commits I'm interested in are the last two. So the one that says in line 3 and the one in line 4. So what I'm gonna do is, if you read these instructions here, they tell you what you could do. And I'm gonna squash, or short for squash is S. I'm gonna say that the commit that is now shown in line 4 should be squashed with the commit that is now in line 3. So if I now close this file, I'm given the option to basically rewrite a commit that is composition of the two. I think that the one that makes sense is the one in line 4. So I'm going to delete these 3 lines, and then also this and this. So this is going to be my squashed commit message. And as you can see, this commit message will contain everything that relates to adding the README file, both the README and the MD. Sorry, the README RMD and the README MD. So now this work is complete. It kind of follows our intended or drafted Git practices. So let's close this file. So now if you see my staging area is clean, and the log shows that just this one commit, right? With I could do git log git show with stat again to show you that this one last commit has everything that relates to adding README RMD and README MD. Okay, so let's do a little less. This is our package so far. And one of the practices that I haven't addressed yet is the one that tells about trying to test what you do. So there is one handy way to test an R package, which is with the function check. Check will run a number of checks. R will build a bundle of all those files into a package that is kind of ready to install. But before doing that, it's going to check that a bunch of things are as expected. And when I run that, I expect some things to not go so well, because this file notes is not a standard file for R packages. So it's going to tell me about that. So one way we can do that is execute R, and basically DevTools has a function that is called check, and because DevTools I have already added it to my R profile, I can just run check without namespacing it with DevTools. There you go. So now this is kind of running a bunch of checks to see the sanity of my empty R package. So let's pop up another terminal in the meantime, and let's navigate to the same repo. Here we are again. Basically, in the meantime, while that executes, let me see how we're going. Yeah, because that may take just a little while. So I know that one of the problems that I have is that I have this file notes, which is useful, and I would like to add those notes to the README RMD. right? So one way I could do that is I could do cat nodes, right? And once I have that here on the console, I can redirect that to the end of README RMD. So if I show you now the diff of README RMD, you can see that at the very end I have just added the contents of notes, which means that I can now remove notes. Git remove notes. There it is, and I can now edit README a little bit more. Oops, sorry, I didn't intend to do that. Vim README RMD, there you go. So let's go to the end. Here is the text that I have just added. Here, let's add a line here at the end. I'm gonna tidy this up in a moment. Okay, I have just removed the file notes. I have added the contents to README, so I can now say a commit that says move notes to README. And notice that I get the same message because I haven't rendered this file. So let's do just that. Let's do neither needs README README RMD. Okay, there it is. It's rendered. And now I have all the files that I want, and I can just move nodes to README. So now it does work. This is the log of my repo. My last commit has moved nodes to README. I have also rendered that RMD file to create an equivalent MD file. And let's see what's the status of my check. So here we have it. It noted that it has a few things going on. Let's see the warning. No parse files found. It looks like maybe because the man folder, checking from maybe because of the man folder is empty or something. I don't know what that means. But the one that I wanted to remove is this one here. Non-standard files in the need to be basically removed, and I just did that. So this is the check that I wanted to demonstrate. And if I do our check again, actually I'm going to show you a trick, because the function check from DevTools is easy to wrap in a command line application. So I did that. So I can now run R check from here, from the terminal. So I don't need to enter R to run that. And remember, I removed the notes file. That also should remove the note in the RMD check that tells me about that file. So that problem at least should become fixed. And the very last thing that I'm going to do with this repo before we end and submit a pull request is editing the contents of description and README so that it is more indicative of what this package really does. So if I show you description, let's edit description. See that it has like a placeholder here. It says what the package does, but doesn't say what actually it does. So let's remove that and say examples of Git practices. I'm going to close that file, and I'm going to do the same with README, because now that I'm documented what the package does, I also want to document that in README. So the goal of practices is to give an example of Git practices. Right. And another thing that I'm going to do here, actually, no, I could just leave it there, just that. I'm gonna need README RMD, right? Once again, remember every time I commit neat R. So every time I commit RMD, I need to also commit MD. So you see now all those files there. I'm gonna say add explain goal of this package, And there is one last thing I would like to do to README, which is, README comes with a bunch of information that is not relevant in this package. For example, it says how to install it from CRAN, but this package is not in CRAN yet. And also says all this information here is not relevant all the way to here. This is just like placeholders kind of to explain how the file really works, how README works, and what you should do with it. So let's do practices. So this is set. Let's do neither once again. Needs README, RMD, and with this, I'm ready to create a pull request. So now I'm gonna say prune README, and this is a log. As you can see, I have been very granular, very small commits. Each one is self-contained, and that's one thing. And now the whole feature is a pull request. It's the whole thing. That's one thing, which is to basically provide the basic package infrastructure. So I can now do gh pr create, and I like doing it with the -d flag, because that creates a pull request, in this case in the 2 Degrees Investing organization. The title, I want to edit it. I want to say create basic package. The message, I could, show you what I mean by an email-like commit message. So basically, if this is the first line and this is the subject, then there should be an empty line, and then one line after that there should be the body, if you want to add a body. So here I add a bunch of files that create a basic package. And notice how I wrapped the text here so that it's not super long. I'm not super picky about 70 characters, 80 or whatever, but at least just be mindful that if you make it too long, it's gonna be difficult for people to read. So I'm now proceeding with the process. I'm submitting this pull request. It's being pushed to the 2 Degrees Investing organization, and the last thing I'm gonna do is just navigate there before I say goodbye, and show you that pull request, how it looks. So it's now on a draft mode, but I could say, hey, it's ready to review, because I think it's complete. And if you see, it has the message as I typed it. This subject, body, each commit is self-contained, so you could go to the commits tab, and if you're interested in seeing how this was built, you can click on the first one and then go one by one, clicking the next button here, and understand, basically how each self-contained commit tells the story of the feature. So let's go to this one, because they are self-contained. It's easy to write a message that is specific, create package, and this is what it does. And then if I go to the next commit message, this one adds, MIT license, and this is exactly what it does. Just the license file and modify a few things, right? Okay, that was a long, or a bunch of things, but I think we did cover, let's see, the tail of README, MD. Let's do the tail of 20 lines. Oops. Tail 20, there you go. So these are our practices. We talked about changes that should be related to each other, commits that should be small and commit often, the work that in each commit and in each pull request should be complete. It should do what it promises. You should check or test what you do, that it is what you expect. The structure of your commit messages is important. It's kind of the structure of an email. Let's agree on a workflow. I have just used the GitHub workflow with a feature branch that's going to be merged into master, and use tools to become more productive and less error prone. So with that, I'm sorry, it's a bit late. Do we have any questions or comments? Thank you. Yeah. Of course, it's not going to cover every possible scenario, but at least we have one example, and we can, as if everyone realizes that what they're doing might be a good example, I would be interested in taking those and link them to from the practices repo. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry again for being late. I think it's bad, but you'll see the recording over there. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.